What's going on, everyone? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac, back at it with another fantasy football video. Today we are going to be discussing the lessons learned from the first half of games of the Week 4 NFL season. But before we get into it, if you guys could, go down, leave a like on this video, leave a comment. I am answering every single fantasy football related comments, whether it be trades, start sits, anything. I'm more than happy to hear it, even if it's a sob story from this past week where you lost by 0.1 points. Sorry, it happens to everyone, but I'm more than happy to hear it. Please go down, drop below in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Turn that notification bell on if you do not want to miss another fantasy football video so you can dominate your league mates. With that out of the way, let's hop right into our first game of the week, the Thursday night game between the Miami Dolphins and the Bengals. I mean, this game was interesting for a few reasons. One, we saw the NFL screw up badly with their management of Tua. Somebody was fired, the head of the medical staff of the Miami Dolphins, and rightfully so, honestly. I mean, Tua looked really, really bad out there. I mean, he took such a hard hit last week, and then this week, it was painful to watch. And in his stead, Teddy Bridgewater comes in, one of the better NFL backups, but not of a starting quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. And that showed with Jaylen Waddle only getting one target throughout the rest of the game. The only fantasy viable starter in this offense was Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill, yes, he is great, but I'm not sure if he's going to be an every week guy with Teddy Bridgewater starting in the near future. We're not sure how long Tua is out for, but he is out confirmed for at least this week, as Mike McDaniels has said. We also have Raheem Mostert as the lead dog in this offense. Now it feels more and more solidified with each and every single week, but Raheem Mostert getting 15 carries for 70 yards to Chase Edmonds' 5 carries for 6 yards. Also, both had 2 receptions on 3 targets, so that pretty much evens out. The only thing is Chase Edmonds is the goal line back for the most part. I mean, getting 2 touchdowns last week and a touchdown this week. He is more and more heavily utilized as the goal line back here, but Raheem Mostert getting that work is very good. And then my last main takeaway is that this is more of a 1A situation with the Bengals wide receivers. T. Higgins is insane. Jamar Chase is insane. Both of them are very, very good, as you expect to see out of him. But anyways, that is it for the first game. Now let's move on to the next game of the weekend. We got the London game. We got the Vikings versus the Saints. For the Vikings versus the Saints, there's a couple takeaways, and most of them are about the wide receivers. I mean, Jefferson is that guy. Enough said. I mean, just over and over again, we see it. You don't have to worry about him having dud performances because he comes back out and has 147 yards. And then Chris Olave, I mean, just a beast as well, averaging 11 targets a game over the past 3 weeks, getting 7 targets here for 67 yards with Andy Dalton and his first NFL touchdown. This guy's really good, and if Michael Thomas is forced to miss extended time, he will be absolutely fine. Yes, he will be receiving coverage from cornerback ones, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, we saw how good Chris Olave was in this game. That is what matters. And then one last thing, we saw a pretty even split in Alvin Kamara's wake, with Latavius Murray and Mark Ingram both getting 11 carries and 10 carries respectively. But Latavius Murray did look a lot better. So if I were targeting one of these guys, it would be Latavius Murray, considering he was just picked up as well. But that is it for this game. Now let's move on to our next game in the Browns versus the Falcons. The Browns versus the Falcons, I have a couple takeaways. For one, now that Patterson is out, we do have 2 players stepping up into that role in Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. Both of these guys getting a pretty split amount of work. Caleb Huntley with 10 carries, Tyler Algier with 10 carries as well. But I'm not sure how valuable this offense is going to be for these running backs if Marcus Mariota continues to look as bad as he does with 7 completions on 19 attempts. I mean, 3 fantasy points, that's really, really bad. Yes, this Browns defense is pretty good, but I mean, that's just sad. So I'm not really sure how valuable they're going to be. Patterson should be out for a fair amount of time. He was placed on IR, so there is some value. I still do recommend going out and getting at least one of these guys if you can. And that will be on my waiver wire video tomorrow, along with some other players going to be discussed. But other than that, my main takeaway from the Falcons side is that I'm really, really scared about Pitts now. I mean, Pitts is a guy I wasn't really drafting. My heart was telling me that I should go out and get him, but my brain was telling me no. And I mean, the situation's just so bad that it's really, really hard to justify liking Kyle Pitts. Yes, he will absolutely have boom games. That's who Kyle Pitts is. I mean, he's one of the most talented tight ends of all time, coming into the league and dropping 1,000 yards. But Marcus Mariota at quarterback has proven that he is not capable of supporting that. Even Drake London looked bad in this game, and there was really no redeeming qualities. But 1 reception on 4 targets for 25 yards, that's not good. David Njoku outscored him with a fumble. Just painful. And then from the bounce side, like I said, Amari Cooper is going to be very, very boomer bust until Deshaun Watson comes back. I mean, dropping 1.4 points of 1 reception on 4 targets for 9 yards. We do have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt here as well. Again, splitting work. Kareem Hunt, a fine flex, a guy I think you should hold on to. He's a very good buy low candidate, a buy low candidate that I had in my last video. Again, if Nick Chubb goes down, I mean, Kareem Hunt's going to be one of the best running backs in the entire league. You're getting an RB1 for free, so I'll go out and target Kareem Hunt. But that's it for this game. Moving on to our next game, we got the Bills versus the Ravens. I think this game was really fun to watch. The Bills' comeback was awesome. But first, we got J.K. Dobbins coming back, putting up 13 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown alongside 4 receptions on 4 targets for 22 yards and a touchdown. This proves that, one, he's going to be the goal line back, and only his second game back, getting all that workload at the goal line. And 2, that the Ravens are starting to work him in more and more. I mean, getting 20 fantasy points in your second game back off of 20 ACL, that is really, really promising sign. He was another one of my buy low candidates working out here. So I think J.K. Dobbins is a proven commodity now back in the NFL. Now that he's back, I think go start him. You can trust him again 100%. But then from the Bills side, I think I am a little bit concerned with the fact that Gabe Davis may be still limited with an injury. I would not really want to start him. Unless he does start getting more utilization again, I can't really start him until he gets 6 targets a game. And right now he's really just not hitting that. He's getting out-targeted by Khalil Shakir, Jamison Crowder. It's really painful. Isaiah McKenzie even. I can't really trust Gabe Davis in this wide receiver 2 role until he starts producing wide receiver 2 value yet again. He looked really good in the first game, but after that, really nothing special. But that is it for the Ravens versus the Bills. Let's move on to our next game here. And that's Washington versus Dallas. Washington versus Dallas really proved to me 2 things. For one, this Washington offense was severely overperforming to start the season. They look pretty bad now. Carson Wentz dropping 7 fantasy points. I project that to be more and more of a regular as the weeks go on. And then he wasn't really able to support a single fantasy viable wide receiver besides Jahan Dotson, who salvaged his week with a touchdown. But Curtis Samuel didn't do much. Terry McLaurin did nothing. De'Ami Brown, classic, does nothing. So I think this offense is really going to be pretty bad for fantasy going forward, especially now with this running back situation. Now that, thank God, I'm very, very happy for this, Brian Robinson is back, meaning that J.D. McKissic's not going to be getting as much work. Antonio Gibson's not going to be getting as much work. Just in general, this offense is going to be very, very crowded, but with no real standout options, and I think that's going to be very bad for fantasy in general. I would stay away from every single one of these guys in this offense. And from the Cowboys side, I think this game proved that Ceedee Lamb is going to be fine. Yet again, as I was saying week after week, Ceedee Lamb is going to be fine here. I think he's going to be an absolutely spectacular fantasy option, putting up 18 fantasy points, 97 yards, and a touchdown. He gets done week in and week out. A guy you could have traded low for. Now I think it might be a little late, especially once Dak comes back. It's going to be really, really hard to trade for him. I think Ceedee Lamb, a phenomenal player, finally starting to see his breakout. And we got Detroit, Seattle, and oh man, this game was wild. This was arguably the game of the week so far. We got Geno Smith, we got Jared Goff looking like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers duking it out. This was wild. Geno Smith putting up 32 fantasy points, Jared Goff putting up 33 fantasy points. In what world do we live in? This has to be an alternate universe of some kind. It is crazy to see, but this is the universe we live in. So they absolutely balled. Then we had the running backs who went crazy in a 48-45 showing. Rashad Penny dropping 28 fantasy points. Jamal Williams dropping 23. Jamal Williams was a guy I was absolutely advocating to start if DeAndre Swift misses an extended period of time. I think he's an absolutely, really, really supremely valuable commodity for a team that's going to be scoring a lot, but is also going to be in very high-scoring affairs because their defense kind of stinks. And then we saw Rashad Penny look really good as well when he gets to work. The thing is, he doesn't get to work often, which is really weird. But he does get 17 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns here. Looking a lot better. And the last thing I want to talk about, a thing that pains me because I was playing him this week in my main league, T.J. Hockenson. Oh my God, 36 fantasy points. This was crazy. 8 receptions, 12 targets for a franchise record for the Lions, with 179 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow, he looked like a baller out there because there was no DJ Chark, because there was no DeAndre Swift, because there was no Amon-Ra. TJ Hockenson took the opportunity and ran with it. He looked like TJ Godinson. That was cheesy. But he looked really, really good out there. Painful, but we were drafting a lot of TJ Hockenson this season on Underdog Fantasy. But anyways, that is it for the Detroit-Seattle game. One of the best games of the entire weekend. But now let's move on to the Chargers versus the Houston Texans. And this was a battle of running backs. Austin Ekeler dropping 32 fantasy points, 13 carries for 60 yards, alongside 6 receptions and another 50 yards, and 3 total touchdowns. He looked insane out there, like the Austin Ekeler of old. I was pretty glad to see it. I like Austin Ekeler, very, very talented fantasy player, but hasn't really been getting the workload that we would have liked to have seen. Now he comes out, gets the workload, and clearly dominates with it. Then we do have Dameon Pierce, 14 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown, and then 6 receptions on 6 targets for only 8 yards, but it is nice to see him get utilized in the receiving game a bit. I mean, this is really good. His 75-yard touchdown was one of the best 75-yard touchdown runs I have seen in a minute. It looked beautiful to watch. I think all Dameon Pierce owners should be very, very happy that they own him. I was not drafting any Dameon Pierce, so it is a little bit painful for me to see. But I think at the same time, he was a great prospect coming out. I didn't really get the draft capital, but he was just getting pushed up boards way too much, and that was my problem. But now it does seem more and more justified as the weeks go on. Dameon Pierce looking like a monster. You should be happy if you have him. Maybe a sell high candidate, but at the same time, I don't see how you could part with this guy if he's balling as much as he is this season. The only other takeaway from this game is that Gerald Everett is honestly a viable every week tight end starter if you need one. Now, I will say if you have one of the guys like Kelsey and Mark Andrews, obviously you're not going to be starting this guy. But if you don't have one of those top options, I think Gerald Everett is an absolutely fine backup tight end or starting tight end in that seat. He has gotten 6 targets, 10 targets, and 4 targets since the start of the NFL season, and that is absolutely fine for a tight end position, especially a tight end getting targets from Justin Herbert, the best quarterback of his career up until this point. So I think Gerald Everett will be absolutely fine. Yes, in week 3, he didn't really look all that great, only catching 2 balls, but I think a lot of that comes down to Justin Herbert dealing with an injury, and Justin Herbert just being inefficient in general. Gerald Everett should be absolutely fine, a guy I highly recommend going out and getting, because you can get him very cheap. And then the last game I want to talk about, I just really want to focus on the running backs yet again here. We got Derrick Henry, we got Jonathan Taylor in the Colts versus the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry looked like a monster as per usual. Guy's just insane. I mean, a buy low candidate of all buy lows to start the NFL season. Now he looks really, really good. And then we have Jonathan Taylor having the worst game of his NFL career in terms of fantasy points. It was pretty painful, but he's also down with an injury, a high ankle sprain. Somehow it is day-to-day. I don't get why all these high ankle sprains are going down as day-to-day recently. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he looked bad, but you can't expect him to go out and drop 30 points for you every single week in fantasy football. This was one of those weeks where he just happens to dud. Yes, it does stink with the injury, but he will be absolutely fine. My main concern is this Colts offense now. I think this Colts offense without Jonathan Taylor is going to be horrendous. But anyways, guys, that is it for the video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, please go down, leave a like, leave a comment. Again, I'm answering every single fantasy football related comment, whether it be trades, start sits, anything. I am more than happy to help you guys out. And go down, subscribe, turn that notification bell on so you do not miss another video. It would mean the world to me as well, and you can crush your league mates. But with that, as always, everyone, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.